Awesome. Well, number 3, I've got Carl. And most people don't know him as Carl, but his first name really is Carl, and it's C.J. Rayburn. Man, I've met. I've actually been in his house. And there's not a lot of information out on CJ, so some of this is secondhand, mainly from Tom Nesbitt. But according to Tom, the last time we talked was, the guy was so innovative that back in 1982, he created the first kind of like roll cage car that we have today. And according to Mr. Nesbitt, every late model today, doesn't matter what chassis brand, still fits on that jig. And Nesbitt also told me in 1988, he won a bunch of races. He said, "Well, I had an unfair advantage." And I said, "Well, what do you mean?" He said, "Well, my car was 800 pounds lighter than everyone else." I said, "What? 800 pounds? Can you imagine, Ryan, the advantage?" But that was the difference between some of the chassis and the chassis he was running at the time. And you probably all both remember that staggered fuel cell, how cool that looked from the stands, that fuel cell all the way over to the left. So a guy that, now I know he's building mods, and, he's won all the big, that chassis won all the big late model races. Moran won the million in, a Rayburn, and of course Auckland's won big races. The checks are all over the wall in that shop. It's pretty cool. Tony Stewart has won races in a Rayburn also. So CJ would be my third, and my fourth would be, the king of the outlaws, Steve Kinser. A guy that, in reading about him, he jumped in. He went to the first World of Outlaws sprint car race at Devil's Bowl. He crisscrossed the country for 36 years. Retired in 2014. He raced a little part-time in 15 and 16, but he's raced NASCAR. He's raced the Indianapolis 500. Remember that you guys are old enough to remember the old IROC. The kids these days won't remember the old IROC series, but of course he was racing that. 12-time Knoxville Nationals winner and a 20-time Woo Series champion. According to some stuff I found on Forbes, they say the guy's worth $30 million. So that's a lot of T-shirts for sale, Ryan.
Yeah, just one or two for sure. Well, I tell you what, man, that's a good list. That's an interesting perspective. One driver, Earl Maltus, obviously kind of changed the game with some of the big crown jewel marquee events. Never heard of Ted Johnson. I don't know much about him, but if he started the World of Outlaws Sprint Car Series, that's pretty instrumental nationwide in dirt track racing. And C.J. Rayburn, absolutely. That's another one that was just a pioneer of the sport. Now, my take's a little bit different. I'm more similar with what Bert had. And my first guy, 600 plus feature wins, 9 championships in various mixing bodies, 8 Braves, 4 World 100s, and that is, of course, Black Sunshine Scott Bloomquist. This guy absolutely changed the game in racing. He's one of the most dynamic personalities to ever strap into a dirt late model. Not only is his resume, amazing. He has an amazing resume, but he's so polarizing, right? People either love him, they hate him. Everybody has an opinion of Scott Bloomquist, good, bad, or indifferent. He has probably, by far, I would love to see the numbers on this in Arizona Sport Church. May have some answers. Maybe Joe Bravo from Joe Bravo Race Park. But I would love to see the merchandise sales that he has as compared to everybody else in dirt late model racing. And I would assume, and Bert may know this, but I would assume that if you took all the other people from dirt late model racing and added all of their shirts together and all their merchandise together, I don't think they would still be at what Scott Bloomquist has been at. Would you agree to that, Bert?
I think that could very well be a very accurate statement.
Yeah, I'd look.
A souvenir trailer on Souvenir Row, and they're usually 314.
And he charges more. Everything he has, right. He costs a little bit more, and he still sells it like crazy. The guy's in demand, and I think that he'd be one of the 4 for sure. The next guy I have, this guy has 840 wins, 6 World 100 wins, and that's none other than Mr. Smooth, Billy Moyer. And that was my favorite guy growing up. It was always Bloomquist or Moyer, but I was always a Billy Moyer fan. This guy has won a ton of races, and really he was the guy through the 80s, 90s, that really, he was the guy to beat everywhere. He has a ton of wins, and I would definitely put Billy Moyer on the map. Both of them guys, as it turns out, have ventured into the chassis building. They've done a lot of different things for the my 1 and 2. Now, I got a buddy of mine who's a big sprint car guy, Kevin Ingles, so I gotta pick this guy, and it's an absolute no-brainer. This is one where I have in common with you guys, 20-time King of the Outlaws, and this guy has 12 Knoxville National wins, 690 feature wins, and that's none other than, of course, the Quaker State 11, as I remember of Steve Kinzer. And, I mean, still to this day, I mean, people can say Donnie Schatz is a guy, whatever, but when people talk World of Outlaws sprint car racing, the first name that comes to mind is Steve Kinzer. I mean, absolutely, the guy was dominant for many, 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 many years, and he really changed the game and brought it to a new level. And I would say he's the guy in sprint car racing where his merchandise sales, they got to far surpass what everybody else's was during his era, and definitely one of the best. Now, I was really torn on number 4, and this is, CJ, I'm not thinking CJ Raber's not my guy, but he was one of the 3 people that I was really thinking about, because, Puka, you're right on the money. I mean, you take many of them chassis, most of them, and now things have changed a little with the 4-bar, but this kind of monkey see, monkey do. Everybody that's good's been in a Rayburn at some point. That guy has been very instrumental in chassis, in a lot of different things. I never had the liberty of meeting the guy. I know a lot of people that have. One statement I always hear about CJ is, man, you're overthinking this thing. If you're not sure what to do between the heat and the feature, just go down to the concession, get yourself a hot dog, come back, get the car, go and race. That was kind of a story I heard about CJ. No, so he's not my guy. Another guy that I really thought maybe could possibly be on the list, and it's not the guy that I picked, is a guy by the name of Ray Callahan, and he had Bullet Chassis, and Ray Callahan was partnered up with the guy that I did put on the list. The guy that I put on the list was basically, in my opinion, the godfather of the wedge nose, the godfather of the wedge late models, and that's none other than Charlie Schwartz. Yeah. That guy, when I was growing up as a kid, guys, back when it was Circle Track Magazine, Stock Car Magazine were kind of the 2 big ones. He was one of the guys that was very common to see the JW Hunt number 1 in either one of those magazines. I mean, he was known nationwide. This guy won a ton of races. In fact, he brought that wedge up to Superior and literally lapped the whole field in Superior, Wisconsin. And, man, he just absolutely was dominant for many years. And they changed it, from the cars that you see on the good old movie Six-Pack to the wedge nose, the wedge style, and really creating aerodynamics and the big side fins and stuff like that. And he was really tied in with Callahan, but I think a lot of people don't really recognize Callahan unless they're diehards. But back in the day, people knew the name Charlie Schwartz.
Yeah, that's cool. That's those great stories about Charlie. Yeah, go ahead, Bert.
Actually, my 4th one was between Moyer and Charlie Schwartz, and like you said, Schwartz was well known for the wedge cars. Probably his most famous one is where the driver actually sat in front of the engine. The driver was practically where the engine is on today's cars. It would scare the hell out of me to drive that thing, but it sure is cool to watch, and watching the video of it, and seeing the car today is still pretty cool. And so I actually did some research on Moyer, and he's the all-time leader in feature wins on the Hell Tour. He has 6 Hell Tour championships, as well as 3 World of Outlaw championships. So that's kind of why I chose him over Schwartz, even though Schwartz is known for that innovation and was a chassis builder at one time also. And I just felt that even though Tony Stewart's very well known for NASCAR,